Nervous breakdowns coming up.
Grown man crying on the side of the road, not clickbait. Hey everyone, Joe and Leah from Let's Head Wherever.
If you've been following along with us on YouTube or Instagram, you know that we had the vacation of a lifetime over the summer, taking an RV road trip up and down the East Coast. We spent the whole summer thinking, wouldn't this be cool to do this forever? The only problem with that is that we are not particularly spontaneous. We are pretty practical and pretty methodical. So it kind of started as a crazy idea. Since we've been home, we've spent several months wondering if maybe we could do this full time, maybe if RV living could be right for us. So we put together a quick video on our top 10 tips for what to prepare for if you are considering the RV lifestyle.
One of the first things that you have to consider is your why. Why do you want to live full-time in your RV instead of your house in the suburbs? And what's your goal? Like, what are you trying to achieve by doing this?
I mean, so I think it's important to remember that it's not vacation. It's not going to be rainbows and unicorns if you're living full-time. There's going to be struggles and everything. So I think it's important to figure out what you're really trying to accomplish out of RV living.
Yeah, because the reality is things are going to go wrong. The stuff that you trade off living in a house, you're going to have the same kind of issues and repairs and upkeep in an RV. For us, there were a few factors that went into making this decision. And the reality is that the isolation from life in COVID-19 actually made the choice easier, I feel like. Back in March, play dates were over, the block parties were over. And we honestly didn't do a whole lot with friends and family over the summer. And that sort of eliminated that first kind of lurch in your stomach about just uprooting everything and moving on. Then we had this amazing opportunity to take this 45, 50-ish day summer vacation where we drove all over the place. And the reality is that shortly into that felt like a very normal routine. And one of the biggest things that we talked about all throughout the summer is how we didn't miss anything from our house. Like there's little things that might be nice as like novelties, like our gigantic shower.
Well, I forgot a belt. I missed that.
A belt, yeah, a belt would have been nice. And I miss my electric guitar. But for the most part, here we have this nice house and it's filled with things and we didn't miss any of it over the summer. So that got us to thinking, well, maybe we need to, you hear about embracing minimalism. We did that. Like we went all in with minimalism. And far before we even told people that we were considering doing this, like everyone around us knew because Leah was selling everything on Facebook Marketplace.
Although I did tell everyone, and I swear it was true, we were going to get rid of everything even if we didn't live in an RV. When we realized that we didn't have to have all that stuff, it was really helpful. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
And going back to the COVID-19 thing, one of the few things that we were able to do the same as we always were was experiencing nature, going out and, paddling on the springs or hiking up the mountains in a national park. It kind of flipped a switch for us, I think, as a family to where that was really enjoyable. Like that was a nice, wholesome way of togetherness as a family, and we wanted to do more of that.
Yeah, we've spent our free time either outside in nature or playing board games, and it's really made our lives a lot slower, a lot more simple, and I think we all feel a lot more satisfied.
I'm a little emotional, dude. You notice that voice break? I was like, "What? Uh-oh, Joe, calm down. Things are going downhill." No, but it's like it was nice being together as a family. That was nice.
It was. Getting home, we thought, how do we capture more of that?
Yeah.
And this is a reason for us. But it's important to figure out what you're trying to get out of it and then really evaluate if RV life is going to give that to you. Another really important thing to think about before you get too far in your planning is the budget. So I see people all the time who are trying to go for full-time RV living to save money, and it's not necessarily a way to save money. You can spend a boatload of money living in an RV and traveling. So I think it's really important to think about, again, what's your why? What is your goal? For us, it's really traveling. That's a big deal to us. And we can't do all the traveling we want to do super cheaply. So you need to think about, what is your goal with the RV living? Are you going to travel a lot? Are you going to go to a lot of expensive places? Are you going to have to budget for gas and places to stay? Or are you going to stay off grid? Are you going to need to make investments in solar and things like that? So there's a lot of things to think about with a budget, more than we can talk about here. I'm sure when we've got all that figured out, we'll have another video just about money. But it's important to make sure that you can reach your goals with the RV lifestyle to reach your budget.
Another consideration is school and work. The reality is if your family is not in a position where you can earn income remotely and the kids can do their school remotely, that's going to present a whole new mountain of challenges that's going to be difficult. For us, we were extremely fortunate that when COVID shutdowns occurred, both Leah and I had the opportunity to transition into a remote workspace. And it's interesting that I bring that up now. In our house currently, we are upstairs in our bedroom while the kids are downstairs spread out doing their homework. In an RV, we don't have that luxury. We don't quite have the floor space. So with the four of us, a major consideration is, where are we going to work? At the end of the day, the kids are doing their schoolwork full-time online. Leah's doing her work full-time online. I'm doing my work full-time online, which includes, for both of us, phone calls and Zoom. If you don't have a quiet corner to do those phone calls and Zooms, that's going to present a challenge for you.
Right. It's not just about, can you do your job remotely? It's, can you really be successful at your job?
Can you really do your job remotely?
Next big decision is, if you own a home, are you going to sell or rent your home? And this wasn't really an easy decision for us. We're really blessed. We have a home that we absolutely love, and we have a neighborhood that we love even more than our home. And it was a really hard decision to sell our home. We strongly considered renting it out, and that way we had a place to come back to, and we didn't have to kind of emotionally part with our home. Right now, the market is so good to sell the house that we felt like we'd regret it if we didn't just go for it and sell the house. So we are selling our house. I think that really made it easier to kind of embrace everything, kind of jump in with both feet. We don't feel like tethered back to the same spot. We really feel like we're all in. And I think for us, again, we're not spontaneous. So I think being like really practical about it, it made us feel kind of free to really embrace all of the traveling.
And it's exciting to sell the house. Well, it's terrifying to sell the house, but it's exciting once the house is sold, to not have that gorilla on your back anymore. And we've said too, and we've told our friends and family this, we don't know what the next chapter looks like. We don't know if we're going to be on the road for 6 months or for a year. We don't know if we'll eventually come back to Florida or end up somewhere else in the country. So selling the home was the best decision for us, is to kind of make that transition easier. Yeah.
And if we end up settling somewhere other than local after we're done traveling, that'll make it a whole lot easier with our stuff, which brings us to our next point, which is getting rid of all of your stuff.
We had a lot of stuff.
We never thought that we had that much stuff, but we apparently had a ton of stuff. So we're working on a whole separate video on downsizing, because this has been like my full-time job for like 2 months now, I think.
And I think it's been the top source of stress and anxiety for us, like by a long shot.
So we are going to have a whole separate video with all sorts of information on exactly what we did to downsize and what we suggest to make sure you can get rid of your stuff as painlessly as possible. But the biggest suggestion we've learned so far is to start now and start small. So instead of waiting till the week before you move or the month before you move even and getting rid of everything, as soon as we started even considering going full time, we started getting rid of stuff. So immediately we got rid of the stuff we didn't need, the stuff we had doubles of, the stuff we didn't use frequently. We got rid of all that right away, thinking if we end up not going full time, we just have less stuff. That's great. And then we went from there. And I would say it made it really easy, because about 80% of the stuff we needed to get rid of, we had no emotional attachment to. It was not emotional. We did it, a week at a time. I'd go through and sell a few things a day. It really made it a lot easier, where it was, I was going to say not overwhelming. It was still really overwhelming.
But it wasn't emotionally overwhelming. And and while we were cleaning a room out, if we got something and we held it in our hands, and again, you had that like, oh man, I don't know about this. Put it to the
Keep it.
side. Yeah, put it to the side for now. Even if in a month you're going to put it away or sell it or whatever, just don't deal with it then. Put it to the side and move on to something else that might be easy to say, here, let's list this or donate this and get it out of here.
Yeah. So if you're even considering going full-time in an RV, the number one suggestion for your stuff is to start getting rid of as much as you can now.
All right, so we're moving along in the steps. And at this point, if you've said, yeah, we're going to go full time, congratulations. Now you have even more considerations. So cool. What kind of full time RV are you going to be doing? Are you going to find a local RV resort or a park and just put your travel trailer or fifth wheel or whatever you have there and just kind of stay there semi-permanently? Are you going to hitch up and just drive and go wherever the wind carries you? Those are a couple of the decisions that you have to make. And again, budget comes into that as well, because if you're going to be traveling all over the country, there's a whole different, bucket of budgeting things you need to consider. And it feels like sometimes anytime you open a door, you got 3 more doors in front of you to choose from, because even if, like us, we've made the decision we don't want to be stationary, we want to travel the country. Okay, great. Where are you heading? What's the route going to look like? We got to worry about seasons. It's going to be winter when we take off from Florida, where it's going to be 80 degrees. We can't just go race to the Rockies where it's below zero and we're going to have pipes freezing and everything. So you got to consider all that. Even if you are going to travel, what kind of camping are you going to be doing? Are you going to be doing mostly boondocking? Then you'll need a generator. Maybe you'll need solar and battery power. Are you going to be staying in, some of the more upscale RV resorts, because, those cost a lot more money. So that's going to increase your budget. When you're going on the road, what does that look like? What's life on the road look like? And like for us, the 4 of us need to be on the same sheet of music of what that life is going to look like.
Yeah, candidly, that was a big deal for us. I think our ideals for traveling are a little bit different. I think, first of all, we envisioned that we were going to be boondocking in the scenic vistas all the time. And then we realized we need internet and we have to work.
We still have to work. So we're going to need to be.
So that's not super practical. Yeah. And then we realized, like, my ideal is we would move all the time and we would travel and we would see all the things and we would see them all right away. And Joe would rather stay a couple of weeks at each place. So we're going to have to find some compromise somewhere in between. Obviously, Joe's the one doing all the driving, so I think he might get a little bit stronger vote than I do. But we have to find a way that's practical where we can all get our needs met, where it's not as stressful. Over the summer, we moved an average of every 3 days. Yeah. And for the summer trip, that was perfect. We were able to cover a ton of ground and see a lot of things.
But the reality is like we don't need that pace if this is our life. We may want to say, like, okay, in the spring, we want to be in this area and then get there eventually.
So have those conversations now. We truly don't have a plan as far as where we're going or when. We have ideas. We don't know what our next steps are. We don't know how long we'll be at each place. But we've had a lot of conversation to make sure that we're on the same page and that we're finding a compromise and we're respecting each other's opinions on that. The next major thing to consider is family and friends and their reaction. So this is another really tough one, and I'm going to try hard not to cry. We are really blessed with really awesome family and friends, and it's really hard to say goodbye to them. It's really difficult. We didn't want to let anybody down. We didn't want anybody to be upset that we were gone. We are worried not just about us and our relationships, but also about our kids. Yeah. Again, this is something COVID helped. They're not in school face-to-face right now. They're not going over to their friends' houses all the time like they used to. So we're hoping that this is a great time to go out and see the country with them sacrificing less than they otherwise would. But it's still a really big deal. I still maybe cry really regularly about missing my friends. I think that's something really important to consider. We are both kind of homebodies, but we both are really dependent on the interpersonal connections with the people that we really care about. And that's going to be tough for us, being away from the people we really care about. We are talking about it all the time. We want to make sure that those close friendships that we formed here where we live don't, deteriorate because we're leaving. We're working with our friends that when everybody can travel again, can't wait to schedule vacations with our friends and family in different places. we know that the onus is going to be on us to maintain those relationships, making sure that we're having, Zoom cocktail hour or whatever it takes to maintain those lifelong friendships. It's going to be a lot of work to do that. And that's something that we don't take lightly. I think if you don't plan for that, you're setting yourself up to be kind of lonely.
And alternately, it gives us an opportunity to catch up with some of our friends that maybe we haven't seen in years and years. Like, I've in the Marines, as soon as we all got out, we go everywhere around the country. So, I have friends literally spread out through the entire country. So I'm really looking forward to stopping in and catching up with them. Leah's got friends all around the country. So it's, while we're sad, we're going to miss our folks at home. It's going to give us a really cool opportunity to go see some friends that we otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to catch up with.
That is true. We have a Google map and we've put pins in all the cities where our friends live. So as we're making our way around the country, we will stop in lots of places to touch base with those people that we don't get to see as much anymore here.
Next up, we talk about the practical things that when you're going through all the emotion and all the stress of the big stuff, like what are we going to do with furniture and selling our house, you tend to overlook, like, where's my mail going to go?
Right.
And like, how am I going to get an Amazon package delivered? Or what about when the kids need to see the dentist or if one of us gets sick? So that's one of the biggest things that kind of, I don't want to say it snuck up on us, but
I think you spend a lot of your mind share, to your point, on the really big stuff, and you still got to plan for the little stuff. So we are using the RV mail service. We have a long list that we've been making for like a month. Every time I get a piece of mail, I am being mindful about going and logging into whatever it is, seeing if I can get it paperless if it's possible, making a long list of things I need to switch over to the new mailing address. It's an election year, so we were really mindful about making sure we planned on our domicile and residency. If you haven't done that, you definitely want to do that. It has major implications for your taxes and all sorts of other things. So you definitely have to go through and figure out some of those practical things. Medications, how are those going to get to you? Health insurance, we were switching health insurance.
Yeah, because you got to worry about the out-of-network stuff. If you're on a more regional or localized medical insurance plan and all of a sudden you're going to travel across the country, and someone gets sick, that could be a serious situation.
It's not the fun part. It's really easy to be like, I'm going to see pretty things, but we did have to spend a lot of time thinking about those practical matters. Again, I would suggest kind of like starting small and starting now with getting rid of your stuff. If you're thinking about going full time, I would have the mindset every day as you're going around like the practical things of life. How would I do this if I was living in an RV and traveling the country? Look at this guy. And maybe we're failed minimalists, but I think it's important that you think about what do you need to buy or move into the camper or repurpose from your house. Obviously for us, the whole point is to downsize, but it's a big difference from being a weekend warrior and needing some things in your RV to be comfortable for a week or a weekend versus living in it. So do you need to have, we talked about workspaces earlier. Do you need to have different things for workspaces? I am an awful interior decorator, so I spend a lot of time looking at people's RV renovations and drooling and wishing I had those skills. But I really do want it to feel more homey. When we were going on weekend trips or even on a summer trip, having a lot of decorations, not a big deal, didn't bother me at all. But when I'm spending all my time there, I do want little things to feel a little bit more homey. So we've been trying to be mindful about what things we want to move into the RV without taking up too much space or without taking up too much weight, but things that make it feel more homey. Like, for example, we might have a difference of opinion here, but I did have to rearrange the entire storage area to fit a giant tub full of Christmas decorations. I cannot live somewhere without Christmas decorations. And I think we've been pretty understanding of each other that if we're being really practical about what you're bringing in the RV 90% of the time, if one of our family members has something that's really important to them personally and emotionally, okay, that's fair. So
yeah, like when you plan on bringing your electric guitar with you.
To be determined.
Which will fit perfectly in the back of the closet. Just hypothetically.
To be determined. Christmas decorations or an electric guitar. But seriously, what do you need to be comfortable full-time permanently in your RV? Like other than our summer trip, most of our vacations have been in Florida or in the south of Georgia. We don't have a bunch of extra blankets. We need to make sure we're storing a bunch of extra blankets. We've never traveled with winter clothes before. We need to make sure we have winter clothes. We are really lucky to have a small portable washing machine, but if we didn't have it, we would be buying one right now. Thinking about your practical life, what do you need? We have carpets that aren't very comfortable. We might get more comfortable throw rugs, those type of things. We're really lucky that we have already spent a lot of time in our RV, so we know which things we use and which things we don't use. In some ways, we're unlucky because we have all the stuff you need for a house and we have everything you need to live in an RV. So we have to go through and thin out what things do we really want. Again, even when it's for a long trip like a summer, if we were missing certain spoons or certain things from your kitchen, it really is not a big deal. But if I'm living permanently, there's certain things that I want to add to the RV.
Like the Ninja Foodie.
Like the Ninja Foodie. If you don't have a foodie, you need one.
Well, it's the air fryer that was going to be severely missed.
It's all of the above. So, for example, we didn't miss it over the summer. We were fine. But at home, we use an air fryer regularly. We use a crock pot regularly.
Pressure cooker.
We use an Instant Pot regularly. Yeah. So for a long trip, fine, you don't really need those. For living permanently, I would like to have those. We were able to sell all those and replace them with one Ninja Foodie that gets to go with us on a trip across the country. Everybody's different, obviously, but for me, I don't know if it's laziness or efficiency, but I don't like to move a lot of things. So when we're moving, when we're breaking down camp or setting up, I don't want to be putting a lot of things out or putting a lot of things away. Unless it has a specific purpose and there's no place it could be stored, it doesn't get moved. So that was another thing for us to go through. Like one of the few things we move is the TV from the kids' bunk room. We move onto their bed when we travel. We never felt like it was important to mount it before. It's one less thing that doesn't have to be stressed. So we're going to go ahead and get it mounted. And that way it's one less thing to do. We've tried to rearrange storage, make sure that everything that is stored is in a way that it takes no extra energy to think about, to store, to put away, to take down.
And that's a good thing too, because you never know what's going to be going on either teardown day or setup day. You know, maybe it's pouring, or hypothetically we're planning on a 3-hour trip and you get stuck on I-75 for an hour and 40 minutes and it turns into a 5-hour trip. Like you never know what travel day or setup or teardown is going to be like. So if you can cut out steps, that's nice.
Mm-hmm. For us getting ready to go longer term, we are having slide toppers put on so that we don't have to blow off the tops of the slides every time before we leave. We're having steady fast stabilizers installed so that it's one less thing we have to install on the RV every time we stop.
Because maybe then we won't have to put the X chocks on, or again, it's one less thing we need to worry about.
My favorite upgrade: we got a bigger garbage can in the kitchen. This is really exciting.
You know what? This weekend was our first weekend in the rig with the big trash can. I gotta say,
kind of feel like a princess. It's pretty amazing.
That was $6.96 from Walmart, well spent. Maybe most importantly, get ready to feel all of the feels when you're going through this process. Just simple stuff like making sure your family's all on board. Is this something that everyone in the family is going to be down with? It was rough at first. I think right now we're in a good spot. We're probably 2 months into this planning period. At first, it did not go over well with our son. He may have cried for like 2 straight hours when I think he knew we were selling the house, but when we said like, hey, we're selling the house, it didn't go well.
I think it's just in general, there's going to be positives and negatives and different things that everyone's either excited about or nervous about in your family. And it's really important to make sure that everyone has space for those feelings. So we're really big on giving everybody that space. Like we talk openly about the things we're going to miss. Again, it's not rainbows and unicorns. There's going to be a lot of things that we have to trade off. So we're lucky again with a 50-day trip that when we came home, we couldn't wait to get back on the road, but we did have an opportunity to think which things we missed, like a giant rain shower head and multiple bathrooms if we all have to go to the bathroom at the same time. It felt weird to be separate, but in some ways it's kind of nice. In an RV, you don't get a lot of time all by yourself unless you want to go on a lot of walks. So some of us were like, okay, that's a downside, no big deal. Some of us were really bummed about some of those things. So I think it's really important to let everyone have space to talk about their specific concerns. I think as a family, we all share the same concerns. And so it was really easy to approach it with like okay, we're all on the same page.
We're all fairly logical too. And, it's like, for example, our son was really upset that he had no fun at all over the summer. 50 days of misery, and at no point did he smile. And thankfully for me, we happen to record all this stuff going on. So I was like, come real quick, let me show you some stuff. And I go through 15 different clips of him just having a blast. And I'm like, so what were you saying about? So it's just little stuff like that.
But just remember that whatever you're feeling, whether it's excitement or stress or feeling overwhelmed, that everybody else in the family is probably feeling one of those emotions also, but it might not be the same as yours. So I think that our whole family shares anxiety about what a different change it is. Again, I cannot stress this enough. We are not spontaneous. No. We are really practical, really methodical.
I think that's part of the reaction from our family and friends. They're like, wait, what? Because this is highly out of character for us.
So it's very, I don't know. We've spent most of our lives doing the next logical step, doing what you're supposed to do. And so this feels kind of crazy. And yeah. I think that for all four of us, it's a really big deal to just be kind of going out there and not having a plan, and knowing that things are going to, come up and be unexpected. That's been a major source of stress. And some days one of us is a hot mess with the stress on the same day that another one of us is so excited about the adventure. And so you really need to be patient with your own feelings and with everybody else's in your family.
And get the pros and cons out there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with sitting around the dinner table and say, what are you scared about? What do you think is going to suck? What do you think is going to rock? What are you most looking forward to? What are you least looking forward to? Because I think the more that you talk about that, first off, just talking about it is going to ease a little bit of your stress. Then it's not this secret scary thing that you have to hold that burden onto.
Right. We know that there's going to be peaks and valleys on a trip, and I'd rather the kids get to experience the exciting parts from the very beginning instead of processing quietly their stress and emotion. So our hope is that knowing that they have an open venue to talk about what they're anxious about and what they're stressed about at any time will give them more freedom to really enjoy the beginning of the trip.
So that's it. Piece of cake. Let's go full-time RV living.
Easy breezy.
We hope these tips helped you maybe ease some stress, maybe provoke some thoughts that you maybe weren't thinking about earlier.
So subscribe to watch the rest of our process as we get ready to hit the road full-time. We're going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll probably both cry at some point in time.
There's going to be tears closer we get to this.
Keep watching for tears.
Keep watching. Click the subscribe button now. Tears aplenty.
Nervous breakdowns coming up.
Grown man crying on the side of the road. Not clickbait.
I swear it's exciting.
It is. That's why we're doing it, because it's it is out of character for us, and we feel like we've just been going down the road doing all the things, checking off all the boxes we're supposed to check off as adults, and now we're kind of going YOLO. We're going rogue.
Keep watching for more videos with actual practical tips on how to get ready to live, and maybe a little bit of hot mess thrown in there.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next time.